I'm going to call to order this public hearing of the Jackson City Council, where we have one item on the agenda, which is redistricting. Want to take opportunity, there's a note handed to me to do a special opening. And colleagues, if you have any, I'll take those at this time. But there's a request for a special to open this meeting in honor of Lewis Ratliff, and also to say happy birthday to Corey Aldridge. All right. Hey, Corey. All right. Any other special openings or acknowledgments at this time? All right. All right. Thank you all for that. Colleagues, we are here to talk about redistricting. Want to take the time to welcome everybody to your city chambers. Want to, first of all, just talk about this process and what has happened and clear up any misinformation that may be out there. For about a year, the council has been inquiring because we knew that it was coming close upon our timeline to redistrict. As we got closer, I say around the beginning of this year, we start looking at ways in which we could achieve and to do that. And so the first thing was to get educated on the process. So previous processes that the city has done is that the city has hired 2 to 4 consultants. Those consultants met with council members either one at a time or 2 at a time behind closed doors. They drew options of maps, and those options were then brought before the council at a special meeting, and it was approved. All right, that's how it happened the 2 previous times that we've done it. All right, this time we wanted to do a little different. We noticed that by going back and looking at the record that there were 3 or 4 consultants, but then CMPDD, which is the organization that provides the technical assistance, which means they hold all the data, they hold all the population, where the voters are, how voters move, black, white, other. They are the data holders. And we noticed that they were hired in lieu of. So you would have this attorney $25,000, this attorney $50,000, this consultant $40,000, and CMPDD $25,000. This time we wanted to look at doing it differently. We want to first of all see what we can achieve together as a body. So we knew that CMPDD was the holder of the information, and all they do is technical assistance. I'll say it again. All they do is technical assistance. So what we did for the first time in Jackson's history is had 2 open meetings at CMPDD where participants from the community and whoever was allowed to come, and we all chimed in on ways that we could redraw. What you see on the wall are options. You have option 2, 3, 4, and 5, and that right there in the back far corner is the old map. Option 1 it was decided that it would not be befitting. We could not come to an agreement on it, so we decided to come before with these 4 options. All right, and so what we've done again for the first time is had a public hearing. If you go back and look, there has not been a public hearing offered by a city on redistricting. It's not even required by law, but we are doing that because we want to give you a voice and want you to understand this process as we move along. All right, so we have, the attempt was for us to come together and to look at what would change if we moved what line where. To give an explanation, if I said move Raymond Road to McDowell, on the screen in live time, it would show me that will take away maybe 11,000 citizens or something like that. It'll show how many people or how many voters that will be taken away. All right. This process has nothing to do with real estate, or it should have nothing to do with real estate. This has everything to do with voters and their representation. All right? We are required by law, and I'm going to ask if the city attorney would kind of go over and give a summary of the Voting Rights Act so that we can all understand why we have to do this every 10 years.
Drew Martin, City Attorney. I don't have a full presentation, but I sort of summarized the general legal principles here that I think the council has been efforting to implement. The first is, and you'll see this on the maps that are around the room, the most recent census population is posted on those. One of the goals of redistricting is to make sure that the smallest and largest districts are no more than 10% apart in their total population. And so what you see, the math is already done on those maps that indicates an ideal population of 21,957 individuals per ward. You can't hit that number perfectly, but the goal is to try to keep the wards as close to that number as possible and to avoid a disparity that's greater than 10% from the smallest to the largest. Informing the new wards, districts should be contiguous, which just means that you can walk from one place to another within your ward without having to cross another boundary. And the wards should attempt to follow recognized geographical and political boundaries, neighborhoods, rivers, creeks, that sort of thing that we recognize as boundaries normally, and then to also be as compact as is practical while meeting those other interests. When you get into the Voting Rights Act, you get into one person, one vote, which is in large part addressed by the 10% number I mentioned before, but you also get into issues regarding race and how it plays into redistricting. And this is a summary, but what I would say the general principles are this simple. Don't draw lines that harm voters based on their race or ethnicity. Certainly avoid that intentionally, but also avoid it in practice. When you look at any particular area, look and see what the Department of Justice does, at least, is look to see whether discrimination has been a significant factor in past elections and election patterns and so forth, to determine whether the minorities in the area already have proportionate electoral power. So you want to make sure that those are maintained. And then don't let race be the predominant factor in any decisions. Race can factor into some of these things, but it should not be predominant. You should be looking at all of the factors that go into making a fair ward, population-wise, spreading it out across the city and so forth. So those are high points. I'm certainly available to answer other questions as they come up.
All right, thank you so much, Drew. I want to say one of the things that we wanted to achieve, which was very confusing, was the amount of split precincts that we've had suffered through due to the last redistricting. For example, the inside of Forest Hill was in my ward. The outside of Forest Hill was in Ward 4. Communities were split. Part of Georgetown was in Ward 7, part of Georgetown was in Ward 3. Part of the Queens was in Ward 4, part of the Queens was in Ward 2. You had a lot of split communities. One of the things that we wanted to achieve was to make those communities whole in their representation. And you will see on the map the representation of that. At this time, what I am going to do is I'm going to open the floor. We have 12 public comments. Hold on, you got some, Vice President Lee? Okay, we have 12 public comments. We have 3 minutes each, all right? All right, and then we have a handout from the NAACP that we're going to receive, that has been received by a clerk. One voice, I'm sorry, that has been received by a clerk. After that, after those comments, and I'm going to ask colleagues that we don't respond during the public comment session. Let's take the time to intake. After that, I will open the floor, colleagues, for us to then respond or to say anything that we would like. Then, if time, and I hope time does permit, and we don't get 10 o'clock p.m. in here, but hopefully we will have the time, because one of the things we've envisioned for us to kind of work like a charrette and to give people the opportunity to look at the different maps and to kind of talk about or to kind of, get somewhat of a consensus of the option that you like, all right? And those, for example, if it's 10 people gathered at option 2, we will ask that those 10 people choose a spokesperson to talk about why that option is the best option, all right? So we'll go forward in that manner. So we'll start with the public comments. Yes, I'm sorry, Vice President Lee.
I just want to, for the record, let the constituents of Ward 2 know that I plan to have a community meeting this week so that I can hear your input on how you want your ward drawn, and I will not be voting until we hear from all of you. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else? All right. Kathy Coates. Is she here? Kathy Coates. All right. If she comes with somebody that knows, will just let me know. Fran Bridges. I saw her earlier. We need a mic at the podium. Okay. 3 minutes, Ms. Fran, and there's a yellow one that lets you know you got 30 seconds, and then a red one that lets you know that we have time. All right.
Okay. Good afternoon. Greetings, and I'm thankful to God for this time and space. I was thinking that the mayor was going to be here, but to his administration, our council, and all of you that are here, I am Mae Frances Bridges, also known as Fran Bridges, a resident of Ward 5. Today I'm here to formally ask that information be shared with us based upon, I guess is what the attorney presented, that it be placed on a website or given to the ward, the council people to send out to their respective residents. Additionally, this seems to be a rushed effort, and I'll say establishing a public input meeting on a Thursday, on a Father's Day weekend, and for us to be here was a little bit of a stretch for us to let other people know. So from what I'm hearing and what I feel is that we want to understand. If you educate us, that will help us. And so I'm asking for an extension on the timeline. And then in terms of equity, we are hopeful. Ward 5 does have Jackson State, and it has a downtown location, and we're hoping to sort of bridge the gap there by coming downtown. But I want to read something very quickly, and it's called Hope Amidst Differences. And it really comes from Romans 15:5-7, but it's the Life Application Bible. The Roman church was a diverse community. It was made up of Jews and Gentiles, slaves and free people, rich and poor, strong and weak in faith. So they had difficulty accepting one another. Accepting means taking people into our homes as well as into our hearts, sharing meals and activities, and avoiding racial and economic discrimination. We must go out of our way to avoid favoritism. Consciously spend time greeting those you don't normally talk to. Minimize differences and seek common ground for fellowship. In this way, you are accepting others as Christ has accepted you, and God is given the glory. If we are not careful, we will continue to create poverty and impoverished conditions across the city. Gates and walls will not stop the city from eroding and being last on most assessments concerning quality of life issues. So that is just about all I have to say. But we hope that you will look in your hearts and you will think about our children and what they see every day. And if we're going to do education in the building, we have to do education outside the building as well. Thank you.
Michael McCullough. Michael McCullough. All right. Danielle Holmes.
Good afternoon. It's very unfortunate that for me as a Ward 1 resident that I have to learn about redistricting through other wards, other councilmen and councilwomen putting on meetings. And so for me, not actually having a representative that I can go to and speak with, this whole ordeal around redistricting and what that means for Ward 1 is a very rushed decision. And so also I want to address the issue of council persons saying that they don't want or they're tired of having poor people in their ward. That's very, very problematic, Councilman Hartley. Because whenever you take a position to run for an office, you know the constituents that you have signed up to represent. And at no time is it okay for anyone to utter out of their mouth about poor constituents, and this is on record. We need equity. Racism and class should not be the determining factor when redrawing these lines. It's sick to even hear those words. And if poor people make you that sick, then perhaps you don't need to be on the ballot come 2025, because that's who you represent. West Jackson is a poor community. But this redistricting tool is also make you all lazy, because if you go out and do your job and build up your community and do the work necessary, wouldn't make any difference where the lines were drawn. You'll be okay with who you represent because you're confident in the work that you've done in your community to get re-elected over and over. But Jackson, again, is not for sale. We were blindsided by CCID, but we will not be blindsided by redrawing these lines for whatever agenda that you have and others on this city council.
Thank you, Mrs. Holmes, Ms. Holmes. Next is Graffiti McDaniels. Am I saying that right? Graffiti? Grafty, I'm sorry. Grafty McDaniels. I'm so sorry.
Yes, that is Grafty McDaniels. And I am the widow of the late Reverend Wayne McDaniels. Oh. I am a member of Mount Nebo Baptist Church, and I also sit on the Jackson Hines Library Board as a member at large. Okay, now my first issue is that I only learned about this redistricting 2 weeks ago, and that was when Councilman Hartley put it out there on Facebook. That was the only way that I learned about redistricting. And that's not good for me. I don't think so. The second issue is that I am concerned about the fact that these maps might cause a discrimination against black voters. And that's something we do not want to do. We do not want to move these lines where it's taking the power for voters and moving them into another district or another ward and leaving a ward without power for voters. Because a lot of times, the strong voters are the ones that goes out into the community to get those weak voters to come out and vote. And when you move them to another ward, then that ward doesn't have anyone to go in there and draw them to vote. So I am concerned about that. And the other issue is I think this is a rush decision. And I also want to keep Jackson State and the Ferris Street area also in this mix. I want to make sure that we keep our focus on Jackson State and the Ferris Street issue, and I want to make sure that we are not rushing this, because as I understand it, the municipality is only required, this voting of this, the maps, is only needed in 2025. That's 2 to 4 months before the election. Is that not correct? It's in 25. It's when it needs to be done. But I can stand to be corrected if I'm incorrect. But if we are rushing, we do not need to rush. That's my concern. Thank you.
All right. Matori?
Hey, good evening. My name is Karanja Matori. I'm a lifelong resident of Jackson, Mississippi, as well as lifelong resident of Ward 5. Just like I think the last ma'am, Ms. McDaniel said, I was also unaware of the redistricting process until last week when our councilman had a meeting, and just with the concerns of a lot of residents of Ward 5 and Jackson, just wanted to know what was the process of this redistricting process, and also the transparency for residents in all of the wards, just to understand, what's the criteria going into redistricting going forward, and and letting us know the impact that the redistricting can have on the different wards. So just wanted to express those concerns. I know a lot of people from my neighborhood and community were curious about this as well. That's all I have.
All right. Thank you, sir. Kolo Rashid.
To the administration and the honorable administration and honorable city council, I'd like to greet you in the greetings of peace. Assalamu alaikum. I'm really here. I can just echo what has already been said. I am a resident of Ward 2. Not only am I a resident of Ward 2, but we have a very major project in the city of Jackson. We were here before the council and the mayor in 2022, and we were given a resolution to build a City of Jackson Beloved Community Project. And we are very much, on the grounds doing that work. And even though we're working in Ward 2 right now, but as you know, the goal is to go across the city of Jackson, right? Go to all of the wards. And the whole idea is to heal our city, right? To heal our city by making sure that there's equity and justice and fairness, right? And we're trying to build a dignity economy. And so all of these kinds of things require that we are educated as an electorate, and that's what we're seeking to do. And so we appreciate, hearing from Councilman Banks to say that this is not required, but in fact, you offered it. So once you offer a thing to a community, and I don't think it just came out of the blue, I'm sure you offered it because there have been issues, discriminatory practices that have already been proven when it comes to drawing these lines. And so it's because you're concerned that the community have a voice, and we appreciate that. And so I'm asking that we have more time too, because I think that when you offer something to a community, they're going to get involved. And so they now want to really get involved and be a part of it. And I think we need more time, and that's what I'm here to ask for. Thank you.
Thank you. The Honorable Mr. Frank Figures.
Protocol having been established. After the Mississippi Summer Project of 1964, often referred to as Freedom Summer, the then President of the United States signed into law the Voting Rights Act on August 6, 1965. For the first time since 1875, descendants of formerly enslaved Africans could vote without paying poll taxes, taking subjective literacy tests, or being intimidated or harassed. In Mississippi, from 1865 to 1940, the majority of the voting age population in Mississippi were descendants of the formerly enslaved Africans. even though the Voting Rights Act of 1965 gave descendants of formerly enslaved Africans the right to vote, the state of Mississippi met in January 1966 and redistricted the entire state of Mississippi on the municipal, county, state, and federal level in a way that even though you could vote, you still couldn't elect the person of your choice. What the state of Mississippi did in these redistricting processes took 14 years and 9 trips to the United States Supreme Court to undo in a way that people could elect the persons of their choice. Jackson then had a mayor and 2 city council persons, all elected at large. 3 names should today be added and many more to the annals of Mississippi history. 2 lawyers I lift up, Carol Rhodes and Frank Parker, and also Henry J. Kirksey, often referred to as the map maker, but today we would refer to him as a demographer. In May 1985, Jackson changed for the better. The people could finally elect the persons of their choice. In May 1985, Jackson went from a mayor and 2 city council persons elected at large to a mayor and 7 city council persons elected by ward, determined by neighborhood and common interests. Henry J. Kirksey died without much money after all of the hard work that he did. But he didn't die homeless thanks to the generosity of the people of Mississippi and Tougaloo College. Today I stand before you as a beneficiary of the work of the Freedom Summer and the many people who took on the state of Mississippi to demand the right of people to vote and vote for the communities of interest and to elect the persons of their choice. I'm a lifelong resident of Ward 3. If I live to see another birthday, I will be 3/4 of a century years old. We are glad to be served in Ward 3 by a council person who has regular meetings, sometimes once a week. Our councilman keeps the people well aware of what's going on in the municipal government. The city of Jackson is still being attacked by the state of Mississippi and the Mississippi State Legislature. The people demand to know. In a democracy, people can elect a tyrant, but an informed people can overthrow and defeat tyranny. We need to see the maps, the people need to know, and it takes time to know. Thank you.
Thank you. Tariq, I thought I saw him. Tariq, can you hear me outside? You want me to come back? All right. Okay. Amir?
Good evening. My name is Amir Badat. I am a voting rights attorney with the NAACP Legal Defense Fund. I appreciate the opportunity to provide public comment this evening. I am here because the LDF and a large coalition of organizations submitted a letter that you have before you today urging the City Council to delay its vote on redistricting plans. And we urge the City Council to provide at least 2 months of additional time for community members to review the plans that have been proposed, analyze them, and provide their own plans for your consideration. The main reason that we need this time is because even though there have been a couple of public hearings, I was not aware of them. I don't think much of the community was aware of them, but I understand that they have happened in the last week or two. Those public hearings are not meaningful unless the community has an opportunity to actually analyze the maps that are before them. The only way that the community can analyze these maps is not by looking at the pieces of paper that are on the walls, not by looking at the PDF documents that are posted online, but by having the shapefiles that are used to generate these maps. Only then can we actually look at the maps, understand the population moves, understand whether or not, Councilmember Banks, you mentioned precinct splits, understand how many precinct splits there are in this map, understand what the compactness of the districts are, understand how many black or white people have moved from one district to another. That is the only way that community members can provide meaningful input into this process, which requires the community to provide that input. You all are representatives of the community. The community chooses you. You do not choose who you get to represent. And so that's why, I understand that 2 months might seem like a long time to you, but that is the time that is necessary for the community to provide the requisite input. The attorney, the city attorney, helpfully described the federal law requirements for redistricting. He mentioned Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. He mentioned the 14th Amendment and the one person, one vote requirement, and the requirement that the council may not racially gerrymander the map. That is a concern of the community. We want to make sure that voters, that residents of Jackson are not being moved from one district to another based predominantly on their race without a compelling government interest in doing so. That is what the 14th Amendment requires. For us to be able to make that analysis, we have to have the shapefiles, which we've requested. I put in a public records request for the shapefiles. I got an answer that gave me the link to the City Council's website with the PDFs. And so we need the shapefiles, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and we, the organizations here, seek to be a resource to the City Council in this process. And so I encourage you to reach out to us and have a conversation. Thank you.
Georgia Karan, did I say that right? Georgia Karan. Can they hear me out in the oh, they can hear?
Good afternoon to the council. I'm not sure that I understand exactly what's going on, but excuse me, if someone could explain it to me, because I do live in the area and I am more than concerned about what happens in the city of Jackson. I've been here now for over 40 years. So please, who can explain to me in 3 sentences or less what's happening? Who is it going to benefit, and who is it going to put at a disadvantage?
So, let us finish the public comments. I will try to make sure that we address explaining the process and then having the city attorney to explain it again. Okay?
Again?
Yes, he did when we have to do this every 10 years based on federal law.
I've been in this chamber for more years than that. And I'm still asking why, what's going on?
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Dorothy Davis, I didn't see her. If it's the same Dorothy Davis. All right. Did Katie Coates ever make it? And then Tariq, he is outside. Is he coming? All right, go ahead.
All right, thank you. Good evening, people. Good evening, councilmen, mayor's administration. I don't want to be redundant, so I won't go down the path that so many of my neighbors have gone down. I'm from Ward 1, where Councilman Foote is my councilman, and I have the pleasure of working in a help center where I get a lot of calls from citizens on a daily basis. So I have a distinct and unique ability to hear from the citizens of Jackson on a much larger basis than just myself and my household. The 6 children I have that are citizens of Jackson, and my wife that's a citizen of Jackson. And overwhelmingly, it is not just the things that the people have spoken about. You talk about gerrymandering, right? You talk about a vote that people in this city and in this state have fought extremely hard to be able to exercise. What I'm hearing is not just concern about what is being given up in wards. I'm hearing concerns about what is happening racially in these wards when this is taking place. I hear concerns about why is there such a rush for this to take place. I hear concerns that the outcome of this could be one ward being heavily favored in racial ways that may hurt Jackson as a whole versus help Jackson as a whole. I'm hearing questions about why we didn't know about this until the last moment. I'm hearing questions about why votes took place the way they took. I'm hearing a lot of questions from the citizens of Jackson about why this is happening in the dark of the night, and why a lot of people are misrepresenting what they've done in the council and what they're doing in the council, while others are being somewhat straightforward about it, right? So again, with the history of where we are, and again, I'm not going to repeat what other people have said, but I will touch on this part. With the history of where we are in Mississippi, for there to be so many questions for the site that people need to sign up for public comments not to be active a day before a meeting that most of the city did not know was taking place, in a place where the Citizens Council once openly and proudly talked about they were the civilized Ku Klux Klan. We're talking about a few decades ago. We're not talking about 100 years ago, as some of you up here like to make your communities think that everything has ended, right? So in a place where we have that type of history, we've got to stop and ask ourselves, why are the people being prevented from knowing, right? Why are the people not being asked what they think until some council people are sitting up and saying, I refuse to vote? Why has it moved to this point? Why does it take councilmen saying, I won't vote until you give the people the chance before the people are being asked what they think? And so the bigger question is, when we look at every single avenue that Jackson is being attacked, whether it's from the airport, whether it's to our school system, where they gave $10 million to the private schools, whether it's to the charter school system, which is overseen by the Authorization Board of Mississippi that's led by a Republican and made up of all Republicans. See, when you don't know the information about who's touching what we're doing, then you're liable to get swept away, and people will sit right in front of you and tell you it's not what it is. So we've got to ask these questions when we get in front of this board, and every time they make a vote that touches on some of these things, we have to ask, why are they voting that way? Why has our school got 13 schools shutting down, but we've got people opening up charter schools like it's popcorn? Why are they not telling us that every time you take one of those children into that charter school, immediately $5,000 leaves JPS no matter their budget? Why are we not talking about that? We're pretending we're making Jackson a better place in every area, but in every area we see secret deals being done that don't seem to help us, and this is one of them. So as I wrap back around, I say again, stop the rush immediately. The people are clearly saying, stop the rush. We don't know what's going on, we don't like it, and stop it. And if you proceed with it, then what we'll do is we'll get you out of there. And that's not me speaking, that's the thousands of Jacksonians that call my center daily that agree we will get you out of there, and it is not that hard. I know people are used to being in a long place for a long time with a lot of lies, but when the truth starts coming to light, it moves things along in a different way. So I appreciate the time, I appreciate you all as the people coming out and filling these stands up and letting them know that we will not let anything happen without the people that put you in that seat saying, okay. You all have a good evening.
All right, thank you. I would like to acknowledge, he's here, especially if he has anything to say, Senator Frazier. You don't have, okay. All right, y'all give him a hand. All right, just a couple of things before I open the floor, colleagues, to hear from you. And we'll just do it by the raising of the hand. One, let me just say that if it seems like we try to do this behind closed doors and to rush it. That is not the case. We found out at the last minute so let me just, this is my first time ever being in a part of a redistricting other than seeing other council people doing it. The processes that have happened before never had an open meeting. I'll say it again, never had an open meeting. This is the first time and it was new. So, yeah, I did. I opened it up. I did. And so in doing that, you know, one of the things that we found out because we asked the questions, you know, what all has to be done. This is my first time going. The first thing we had to do is we had a certain timeline. I think before this is either a 7 or 6 month timeline that we had to first adopt a resolution. That was the only vote that has taken place. That vote was to vote on a resolution saying that we will abide by the Voting Rights Act. That's the only vote that has taken place. And we had to do it way before we started this process. So we did the resolution first. After we did the resolution, we talked about how we would do this and who we would hire. Everybody agreed. I had a town hall and I let people in my ward know what was going on and where it was going to be. There was months before this where where you could have been informed the same way, but I'm only speaking on my behalf. When we had the open meeting, or when we had the first meeting, the meeting was for us to, again, you see these options. We moved the lines to see our population, and to kind of explain it, Ward 1 had around 25,000 people. They had to get to around, what was the recommended number, 21? 21.9 is the number for us to be in compliance. So go ahead, Drew, if you could go through that.
I thought I had the number written down. I think it's 21,957.
That's it.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So each ward has to be that with the 10% different. And so there's no large, big changes. What we were trying to do is shift everything to where the ward that might have lost or might have lesser population can take on an area and trying to keep that community whole, you know, so that they can make up that population. And those wards were wards, 5 was the lowest, and I think Ward 3 was the next lowest. I think Ward 6 was maybe minus 1.5%, minus 2. You were, y'all, Ward 4 gained 2%. You lost 1%, and we lost like 1.9, almost 2%. And so what we have to do is bring everybody in that 10% of 21,000. And Foot gained, he was up 15%. No, but you gained 15%.
You were at a surplus of 15.
Oh, we had the most people.
Yes.
We had the most, we had to get on like 3,000.
Speak into the mic, sir.
Ward 1 had the most citizens as of the 2020 census, 25,000 and several hundred. And so we had to get to the new median of 21,900. We had to give up our boundaries, reduce our boundaries to give up over 3,000 citizens. That's not any fun when you got all these neighborhoods that you like the people and everything else. But we had to give up ground so that the wards that were below the 21,900 level could reach that level. Anyway.
All right, thank you. So what we did was we had those meetings at CMPDD. Look, thank you all. I apologize if maybe I should have found a better way, but our budget's tight already, but a better way to advertise other than what we knew to do and me having town halls like I always normally do with the constituents in Ward 6, right? But I did want to make sure we opened this process up, all right? When we had those meetings, and I just want to kind of talk through the process. When we had those meetings, on the wall are options. And after colleagues, we come, I want to give you the opportunity to look at those options. We still, and going to the timeline, when we found out where we were in this process, basically, we waited too late to find out and to educate ourselves about it. We found out that we were looking at needing to have something by July 1. Let me tell you why. Because you have to inform and mail out to all the citizens their changes, and you have to notify them in enough time, especially when their precincts and changes, because a lot of the precincts like Key Elementary, they're no longer precincts. So we have to do all of that, and then we have to give the clerk the opportunity, and we didn't want her to be rushed 30 days trying to do 3 months' time in 30 days. So this will all, so that they will have enough time to begin for citizens to know. And so that was the only reason. It was recommended that we need to do this by July, so that the month of July, August, they can start notifying once everything is finalized. And so that's the only reason, the rush. The rush is not to try to put something over your eyes. We want to make sure. The last time this happened, people got notified at the last minute. Some of you were getting notified a month before the election, and you didn't even know your precincts were split. You didn't even know your precincts were split. We're trying to fix it by notifying in advance. And a part of this, the main thing for us was to make communities whole, because they were all split up. All right, I'm going to yield. I just wanted to explain that. And did I get that timeline right, or do you want to kind of go over?
No, I think that's it. The only thing that hadn't been mentioned that I think is worth making sure everybody is aware of, one of the commenters specifically asked, what are we doing and what is this? This is a constitutional requirement. The United States every 10 years counts everybody in the United States through a census. And so the idea of redistricting is simply the process where you change the lines to try to more accurately reflect where people live now, and to make sure that everybody has equal access to their political representation. And so that's the process. It comes about after every 10-year census.
All right. Vice President Lee.
So I just have a couple of questions. Since we've opened this up to the public and we are asking for input, are we able to, after we gain all of the input from our community, redraw the lines, or are we stuck with these 4 options?
We can go back and schedule time at CMPDD. This time we could make sure that a date is set where people could come and watch that process again. So that this is not closed. This is only available to let people know some of the work that we've done already, so that they can see it.
Okay, and now that we have heard from the community that they want us to delay the process a little bit longer, what is the last possible date that we could vote on this?
You're looking at me, but I don't have an answer to that one. I'd be glad to help you find out, but I don't know as I sit here.
That's good, but the work is, we don't pay him. The work is going to be done by the municipal clerk, and I don't even know what her staffing is like, but I know that she would need some time.
Yeah, I think that's what you were asking.
Oh, okay, 6 months?
60 days before the primary, which is next year.
Okay.
60 days before the primary.
So let me just add to that, just from a legal standpoint. I will say that the voting, the Secretary of State, the precinct rolls, the voting rolls, all of those will need time to properly update, or people will lose their opportunity to vote where they're supposed to vote. So 60 days would be cutting that really tight.
But if they're involved in the process, they'll already be aware.
Hopefully. The problem we ran into when this was done with the 2 predecessors before me, I believe Councilman Yarber was in my seat. The problem we had, I'll give an example, Precinct 94, which is a split precinct. They found out 20 days before the election, and a lot of people were showing up at Forest Hill United Methodist Church when their voting precinct was Christ Tabernacle. And so a lot of people didn't even vote. And so we wanted to prevent that and give enough time so that nobody be under the gun of trying to send something out. I would say it's fair for you to know who's representing you more than 2 months before an election. Because what if you're in precinct 68, y'all in 96, but if you're in precinct 68 and precinct 68 is in Ward 5, but only 60 days before the election, you knew I was your councilman, but it changed 2 months before the election. That's not enough time.
We're already 6 months out, right? Like, we're actually more than 6 months out before the next primary. So I think understanding that this is a possibility based on what was in an uninformed process, now we're in an informed process, right? And so I think
giving it time.
Given time, we still have more than 6 months to do that. Given the time and the law, I think it's worth one making assessing. Let's not project.
Hold on. Let me do this. Why can't you come? You gotta get on the record. Yeah, that's why can't you? I thought you was gonna kind of do it in 5 seconds, but since you speak alone, you gotta not get on the record.
Good afternoon. Good evening, everyone. I'm with Kenya Clanton. I serve as the State Director of the Southern Poverty Law Center. And my comments were in reference to what we were speculating. Understanding that based on the law that has been presented to us and statute by the state, I think we have enough time to go back and assess what the timelines are, right? Clearly, no one here knows the dates. So let's take the time to figure out the accurate information, and then we can make informed decisions based on that.
Duly noted. All right. Did you have another question? All right, colleagues, I will open the floor for comments. Councilman Hartley.
Yeah, and Councilman Hartley, look, last week I had a town hall meeting, and in trying to explain a direction, I was asked, hey, you're the leader. What's your view? Where are you going? What do you think? One of the thoughts I shared at that meeting is, over the last, from 2010 to 2020, we had the highest population lost in Ward 5 out of the city. The highest population lost. And if we continue to move into areas that are losing populations, then we will have the highest population for 2 decades, from 2020 to 2030. So in saying that, I think that's where some of the interpretation came from as a part of the comment. But we cannot keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. I mean, we got to look. This is an expansion. I love Ward 5. When I landed in Ward 5, I wasn't going any place. It was home. It was community. It was the houses. It was the people. It was the swag. It was everything. And I can't even imagine living any other place. Yes, it's the poorest part of the city of Jackson, but it's rich in the things that matter, including the people. And so, in looking at expansion, I came, and Councilman Foote, I don't know if you've had a town hall because I hear some of your ward members are here, but one of the things I wanted to do was start from a blank sheet. Where do you want to go? Before I even put any of my thoughts out there. And I think that's important to this process. I like what folks saying, hey, look, let's take some time to get everyone involved, to learn this process, to make this our destiny. You know, this is what we're about. This is our moment. Let's not just breeze through this thing and folks don't even understand it and, okay, rubber stamp by the city council and move on, and then we ask questions down the road. That's not democracy. Democracy is we the people running this. And so I would encourage our council, fellow colleagues, to do just that. We pause, we educate, we involve, we communicate, and then we make a decision. And then we come up with the people's choice for the maps. And I just think that's so important. But I appreciate folks, look, our democracy is precious. Is it perfect? No. We're still forming that perfect union, and we will always be. And so I ask you, I thank you for your participation here tonight. I thank you for coming. I thank you for speaking up. And we got to continue to do that. Okay? Thank you.
All right, let me, they're still working on, let me direct this, and I want to start from Ward 1 and go down. Let's do it like this, because when we went in to the meetings to discuss these lines, all of us had something in mind that we wanted to either achieve or that we wanted to, you know, basically that we wanted to do. And I would like for you to express that so that, you know, so that people can hear your thoughts and hear what was said by you during this process. If, you know, and I want to keep this is about people. It's not about real estate and buildings. And so I'm going to give an example. When they would move the line and a council member would say, move this line over here, if it was a bunch of zeros, then basically wasn't really no voters there. It was just real estate. All right. So if we can, let's go from 1 to 7, and talk about what you were trying to achieve when as you were making your recommendations for the options here. Councilman Foote.
Thank you, Mr. President. So just as some context, if you go back to 2010 when the current map, you back in that corner, was created for the 7 wards. The population of Jackson was, for the 2010 census, was 173,000, and some rounding off to the nearest 1,000. By 2020, when we got the census numbers a year ago, or whenever they came in, the population had declined to 153,000. So it had been dropped by 20,000 people. That's a lot of people. That's 11.5% population decline. Okay. So the city, unfortunately, had an exodus of a lot of citizens that left the city of Jackson and moved elsewhere. And we've got the empty residences to validate that as well, with 2,431 tax forfeited properties. That is way too loud. So when I started the process, that's not right, is it? Let's see, try it this way. Let me go back to this microphone. So when the process began, I looked at the map and I looked at what Ward 1 had around 25,000 and somebody else. Okay? Don't grab it by the, oh. Yeah. Grab it by the. So when I looked at the process when we started this, Ward 1 had around 25,400 or some odd citizens, and we had to get down to 21,857, which meant about 3,000 residents had to be marked into another ward, which that's no fun at all for the council member, because you've got people you know and communities and neighborhood associations you know that you've developed, you know, good relationships with. So this was all about subtraction for Ward 1, which is not, you know, not what I'd prefer it to be. So we weren't exchanging, you know, giving or getting there. We were just giving the entire time. And we ended up giving some to Ward 2 and some to Ward 3. In good neighborhoods and really good folks that are working hard to rebuild their communities. And my best wishes to those, Ms. Lee and Councilman Stokes, for those neighborhoods they're going to take over as councilman for. So it was, to me, it was a gut-wrenching thing to go through. You know, it was something that had to be done in order to meet the specifications for the laws, the way they're written. And so you know, I just tried to do it so I could keep neighborhoods together in a way that because we've got a lot of good, strong neighborhood associations across Ward 1, and I wanted to keep them coherent so we didn't break up neighborhood associations as little as possible. That was my goal. And this is where we stand. You can look at the different options, and that's where we are with Ward 1.
Thank you, Vice President Lee.
Ward 1 has remained pretty stable. We only lost about 1% of our population.
2. You said Ward 1.
Sorry, Ward 2. And so when we started thinking about the maps and how we wanted to redraw our lines, we knew we had to pick up some of Ward 1 because we border each other. So I was excited to go across County Line Road because it's unheard of for a black council person to represent that part of town. So we're excited if we pick up that area, but we also wanted to look at options going into Ward 3, where we would pick up parts of the 55 corridor where we knew we wanted to do some major work, such as the Oyo Hotel. I know that I would be diligent about getting that torn down. We also wanted to see what we could do with some economic development in that area with Waffle House closing down, and also with McWillie School District, and also the flooding that we're having in those apartments and the advantages. So we asked to pick up parts of Ward 3. The only caveat is that we would also, when playing with the lines, some of it would be drawn out, such as my big, huge voting block, such as Presidential Hills. And so that is one of the reasons why I've been reaching out to Mr. Brown, because we need to talk. Because I need to hear from Presidential Hills to see if that is what they want. Do they want to go to Ward 4? Or do they want to stay in Ward 2? And I told them I'm not making that decision until I talk to that community. Another big change would be one of my split precincts, Queens. And I reached out to Ms. Doris Devine and got her input, and she liked having 2 council members because she knows she can call one of us and get something done. So that has been my process, is trying to talk to my neighborhood presidents. I've reached out to Mary Crump with Ashley Akers. I'm not making a decision until I talk to all of my neighborhood presidents and community to see how they feel about the redrawing of these lines, because they are the most to be affected. And so that is why we're proposing to have a community meeting. We have 4 options, and if they don't like them, we'll start from scratch.
Let me say this in Councilman Stokes' absence. This is one thing I know he wanted. He wanted all of Georgetown back, and he wanted all of Wood Street and Vernon District, because his communities were split, and he wanted all of that community back. And so I know that's what he was. All right, we'll go in order. 1, 2, 3, 4.
All right, thank you, Mr. President. Good evening, everybody. So when I first won this seat, my predecessor told me, he said it's going to be tough to have a strong sense of community because of the way that the ward is drawn. Honestly, Ward 4 can have 2 council members. You can have a north and a south. If I have a backpack giveaway, I got to do 2. If I have a town hall, I got to do 2. Water distribution, got to do 2. Probably 4 water drives, because my southwest folk ain't coming northwest, and my northwest folk ain't coming southwest. And it's a bit of a challenge to create one community when you have that kind of territory, especially one that is so isolated out in southwest Jackson. And so, and then if you look at where I live, because when we first went into this meeting, I'm really on an island. If Stokes wanted to move over one street, he can take me out. Okay, and he probably thought about it. But for me and for the ward, because again, we were very consistent in terms of our growth, our development, but we just didn't have that sense of community. And that's what we're lacking. I got amazing neighborhoods, I have amazing associations, I have amazing leaders, but we don't have that sense of community. And that's one thing that we really want to push for. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Hartley, Ward 5.
Yeah, in Ward 5, again, the best ward. When I started out, and I started seeing the way some of the changes were proposed, my concern is that we had to gain populations. How do we gain populations? Where do we gain populations? And so, again, as I said earlier, I don't want us to be the highest record losing populations for 2 decades. Perhaps, just perhaps, we need to expand into some stability. Just perhaps. These areas that we're talking about, I spent a lot of time looking at abandoned properties, working on it, and currently Councilman Foote and I trying to get together a task force. And I appreciate that, especially over in his ward. He doesn't have that concern as much as I do. Crime, big. Vacant properties, dilapidated houses, drainage ways. All these issues are magnified. So I don't think anything of myself. We're just trying to get a little stability for a ward where we don't see a whole lot of stability. And a lot of folks don't know, but a lot of times city council, all we can do is put stuff into the city system to get it done. Then it becomes the city hall, mayor and the directors, etc. But I get all the complaints and all the issues at the grocery store, at the, you know, there's not a place I can go. Churches. I get it. Post office. I get complaints everywhere because they are all around us. I'm having surgery and someone wants to talk to me, an anesthesiologist. Well, what about Jackson and da-da-da? I'm like, it's not that I don't love what I'm doing. It's that we have to be smart about what we do. If we don't continue to fix these issues on a citywide basis, then Ward 5, other wards will become just like it. Trying to control blight, trying to control crime, trying to control the drainage, the blocked drainage way and the inlets, trees growing out into the streets. I would dare say Councilman Stokes and myself have the most serious of those problems in our wards, and we have lost the highest amount of populations. I believe if we can start fixing that, then we can stabilize. My thoughts, first of all, the people need to be there. The first meeting, I thought that we would have people that could come on and do comments. It didn't happen like that. Second meeting, I thought that, okay, maybe there was a bug or something, we can have comments. So when I finally decided to have my public meeting, I wanted to start off with that blank sheet. And other folks, you know, around my colleagues, you know, I've heard one of them speak up about the economics and this hotel and that. It's a part of it. Okay, it's a part of it. What I started looking for is history. My ward is full of history, from Jackson State, the Kofo building, to the 100-year-old zoo, to streets and houses that Dr. King and local civil rights leaders had dinner at and planning meetings. We're all about history over there. We want to maintain the places so that history can be appreciated. So it don't look like, hey, we had this struggle, now look at us. That's why I go out in the neighborhood and work with this. So my thing was, hey, how about if we span to the east and pick up Ferris Street? That's history. That's a beautiful history there. See what we can do with that, with the same folks in Jackson State and so forth. And then, speaking of Jackson State wants to migrate to the east. They have a building downtown at the corner of Pearl and Lamar. Let's go there. Let's pick that up. There are other areas. I want to keep the neighborhoods together up around Capitol Street. One of the proposals talking about losing the zoo. I don't want to lose the zoo. I think the railroad track would be that natural boundary area. I want to keep that. So those are some of my considerations. The people, our history, our culture, But we got to work to fix this city, or else you'll be looking around and it'll be population lost all over. Okay, that's all. It's in the hands of the people, and I'm grateful for that. Thank you.
All right, I'm sick, so I guess I'm next. If you all look at the map, any of the maps, look, I just want to represent whoever is in my ward. I'm in South Jackson, and the way my ward is, ain't nowhere I can really go. So you got Raymond Road, Terry Road, Byram, and then you go up Sywell Road. But then if you look at that old map, it looked like a crocodile took a bite out of Ward 6 all the way down to where Cannon Creek is and Sunkist. And so those communities are divided. And so what I wanted to try to do was to close those gaps, to get rid, because I have a lot of split precincts, and make my communities whole. That's all. And again, it ain't really nowhere for me. I ain't got no access to downtown. I am deep South Jackson, all right? And so, you know, it doesn't matter to me. I'm going to represent whoever's in my ward.
Mr. Banks.
All right, yes, sir.
I know I've already spoken, but I also want to clarify, you know, on one side of one street is 4, on the other side of your street is 6. Same street. And
Cedar Hills is Cedar Hills?
Cedar Hills, right. And we have people who go into the polls to vote for one person but have to vote for another person. Same thing with Angelique and I. Same thing with Councilman Stokes and I. Newport Street, I'm on the north side of the street, he's on the south side of the street. You got folks calling from all over the place, and I think people need to understand that in terms of community, they need to know they have the same representation. They shouldn't have to hop offices. They shouldn't have to call my office and my clerk say, well, no, that's this council person. So we need more clarity with that, and I think that this process will bring that.
Absolutely. And you know, a lot of people, you know, they trademark me as the South Jackson council member. But everything on the west side of Terry Road is actually Ward 7. But they call me, you know, because, you know, they say I'm in South Jackson. And so, you know, just want to do that. All right, that's it for me. Councilwoman Lindsay, Ward 7.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. You know, the joy of being last is everybody wants me to be brief. And so I think I'll do that. But first of all, I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. You came out on a night when you thought there could be bad weather, and you came because you cared. And I have learned so much from each of you tonight. And Mr. President, I want to thank you for not cutting off Mr. Figures, because I always learn from Mr. Figures when he gets a chance to talk to us. But Ward 7 is very unique. You can look at the map and tell that it's always been. It's historically very unique. I did have a little bit of a gain this year, about between 4 and 5%. And so I had to give up a little bit. Mr. Banks has already talked about this, but we had 2 neighborhoods completely cut in half, and that was the Georgetown and Verdon addition. And so Mr. Stokes and I quickly reached an agreement that we would make those neighborhoods whole again by their becoming a part of Ward 3. But the last phone call I made today before we came into work session is I called Mr. Banks, our president, and I said, Mr. Banks, first of all, no date has been set for a vote. I don't know. There's probably been some misinformation about that, but there was never a vote date set. That has not happened. And the most important thing I think I asked him today was sort of what Councilman Lee asked, and that was, after we hear from the citizens at this public hearing tonight, will we come together again to consider the lines another time, or maybe even more than that? And he said, yes, we could do that. And so I do think that that is a real possibility, and I think that we are certainly going to take into consideration everything we heard from each of you tonight. And my email and my phone number are on the City Council website, and I look forward to hearing from each of you individually if you'd like to reach out to me. So thank you very much for coming.
All right, this is what I would like to do. 10 minutes. If we could do 10-minute recess. The reason for the recess, for those that did not get an opportunity to look at the maps, I want you to get a chance to really look at the maps. After hearing our conversation, I want you to get an opportunity. That this is, and I want to hear from you guys on this. And the reason why, we might go back and say, okay, option 5 and option 4, based on what we heard tonight, they're out. And when we get back to this table, we'll know where we could be working from. But what I would like to do, yes, Councilwoman Lindsay.
Yes, just as a point of clarity, Mr. Banks, we are begging for you to put your comments in writing.
Please.
Just saying them to us is not going to be nearly as impactful as if you. Are there comment cards that were supposed to be? No.
If we could get some index cards.
But we need to get this stuff in writing so we can truly analyze what you're saying. I've gotten several from Ward 7, and I'm very grateful that they've taken the time to write. You can send us emails, but we need your comments in writing, really before you leave tonight, if you have time. So, thank you.
Yes, Councilman Hartley.
Yes, Mr. President. I'm just wondering if it would help, move this process along if we could just get some stickums and allow folks to make a comment as they look at a map, and they just leave it there on the map, and we can process it from there.
Whichever process. If you want to, okay, listen, let's open this. Let's get some index cards, all right, and let's get them handed out. If you want to get some stickets and put on the map and make comments, you can get some stickets, put on the map. Please do not write on the maps.
No.
All right, Councilman Griselle, you're an educator. I know you got some good advice.
Well, kind of, but I just want to reiterate the fact that I don't think any of us are taking this lightly. This is a very weighted reality for most of us. I think this is the first time we've all had to go through this process. And keep in mind, we also live in our wards, and so we understand our interests, all right? But with the population loss, we're all required to shift. We're all required to give up something, and we're all required to gain something. So we're going to hear you, but understand that we were elected to make the best decision for the city of Jackson. And that's all I got. Thank you.
Dr. Wakinya.
Not quite, but thank you, Mr. President. A couple of points of clarity, because there were a couple of asks that were specifically made from community tonight.
Right.
Right. One was to delay the process so they had an adequate amount of time to review the maps, understand them, and then present you back a proposal. That was one request. The other request was that, and I just heard from the young lady here, that people want to know what streets are you proposing to move into which areas, right? Like you all are just coming into this process to understand it. You have to give people an adequate amount of time. Like suggesting that they write down their comments on sticky notes and index cards in a meeting when they're just having an opportunity to talk to you about this is unfair. And so I think we really, and like what you're saying to us, we understand that you live in your wards and that you represent the people of your wards, but your people also live in your wards, and they also understand the needs of their wards as well. What we've heard today was a lot, and we also understand the need for population shift. We understand the census, we understand reallocation, but you also have to give people an opportunity and give them the respect and the dignity of ensuring that they are educated enough to know when they want something changed in their community. There are many things that need to come into factor. Landmarks, as Councilman Hartley just pointed out,
Landmarks
right?
Don't
History.
vote,
Sorry, I didn't interrupt you, so I'm going to ask for you to let me finish what I'm saying.
Why can't you?
I'm clear about how voting works,
yeah.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah.
I'm also clear about interest. I'm clear about land. I'm clear about schools, school districts, precincts, and several other things that I'm very clear about. So in this moment, I'm going to ask, if people are okay with this, is that we go back to the original request, which is presented to you in writing, which is to delay this process, give people the shape files, and give them an opportunity to be able to come back to you with the people's decision, not yours.
Yes, the city has shape files.
No, go ahead, Clerk. You had something you wanted to say?
Shanikia Jordan, Clerk of Council. So on our city website, there's a page named Redistricting 2024. The information for this meeting tonight is there. However, it will be updated once we leave tonight. Each map that is on the wall, you can click on the link and see the map. And you can also type whatever comments. You have to attach it to the file, and we will get it to each council member.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Vice President.
However, that is not the shape file. Are we able to get that from CMPDD and share it with the community?
I have that down on my list, so I will email them tonight with those questions, but I provided what was provided to me.
Thank you.
There's a certain software that goes with what you're requesting. Now, listen. No. Listen. A part of it is not. So, okay. Is that a part of the cost that we paid? Okay. And so the shape files is basically what we saw them doing live.
Yes, the shape files is the skeleton of that map.
Okay.
With the data inside.
Okay. With the numbers and everything?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah. And Mr. President?
Yes.
I'm not sure whose is more accurate, but Maurice Mayberry with the City of Jackson's GIS department has shape files as well. And I think we can check on him on, the date, the last update. But shape files can be gotten from him or CMPDD. When I call CMPDD,
I think the point is to get the shape files from where the work is coming from.
Okay, when I call CMPDD, they would not give me the shape files. The only thing that they said is that they would give me the PDF. So if we are paying for their services, perhaps you might be able to entertain that question with them about.
Come on.
Do you mind going to the mic?
Huh?
So.
CMPDD here?
No, they're not here tonight. Yeah.
So as Ms. Monica already mentioned, the shape files are files that are generated by the software that CMPDD uses to create the maps. Those files, they can download from their software and email it to any one of us. It's really easy to attach it to an email address. Once we get it, Ms. Monica or someone else that has the mapping software uploads it to their software so that we can see all of the information related to these maps. That's the population information, how many precincts are split. We essentially are able to look at the map with all of the detail that we need to be able to actually analyze it. And so, Councilman Hartley, I'm guessing CMPDD didn't give it to you because they were like, well, he probably doesn't have the software, he can't use it.
No.
But
they just said I can have it because they're not giving it out to people,
to
the public, and I would think it would be a public information.
It is.
And so I'm like, I didn't understand, so I just used the PDF to send out.
Well, Councilman, you are the city councilman. They work for you, and so you are entitled to those files, and the public is entitled to those files.
Yes, they are.
What is the suggestion for those who do not have access to the internet or anything like that? How can I present it in a way, am I able to get it printed out with the data needed?
You can print out the data. We can also provide the data that your constituents might need. Okay. We can. This is a well-worn process. We went through this process for congressional redistricting, for state legislative redistricting. There is a common set of information the community wants to know, and that's the type of information that we can get printed out, put into a package, sent to you.
I'll get with your office.
Okay.
All right. So, again, and it's getting late. The council has look, we are going to look at a real suggested timeline. That was what was discussed with us, is what the concern is. We do not want what happened in the past to happen again, okay? And as people, 2 months before an election, you need to know where your ward is and the person that's running in your ward. Do we agree? Yes. We agree. Okay. All right. Yeah. The reason why we said the qualifying date to run is in January. Okay? January 2nd. So people that are planning and people that are knowing the people that are running, I would say at least October. We were trying to give at least 3 months or more to the clerk to do all that notifications and to give all that stuff out. You know what I'm saying? Last time that was the mistake. And even though it was good advice, it was the mistake and the people suffered. We do not need that to happen this time. All right. So what we envision, was somewhat of a charrette to give people opportunity to look at and see the lines and see some of the work that has been done based on what council members have said. And I hear you loud and clear, like, hey, we got you, but we want to pause. But we want you to also just kind of see, based on the expressions of the council members, where the thought process is, okay? And to begin to look at that and just give suggestions at this point electronically. I wanted to have a spokesperson for each one, maybe to come back and maybe say something so that we can hear tonight, but time is not going to be fruitful for that. Yes, sir.
Am I right, Mr. President, that each one of the 4 maps, the options 2, 3, 4, and 5, all qualify as with the laws?
The 10%, yes.
10%.
They all qualify for the 10%.
And obviously the one back in the corner does not qualify.
The one back in the corner is the old one, yes. That's the original, yes. The airport. Okay. Yeah, it's an airport, and there's no population there. Yeah. Okay. All right. Colleagues, anything else or any suggestions? Colleagues. Go ahead.
I hate to give him an onslaught of work, but Maurice Mayberry, he could get the updated files and work individually with the council folks. If you had a determination on how much population we have on one street versus another street and how that could balance out the numbers, he may be able to help with that.
So let me tell you, we as a council, the first agreement was to do a resolution, and that resolution had to be done before we even start this process to abide by the Voting Rights Act. Number 2, as a council, we decided, instead of paying 4 different consultants, that we would enter into an agreement with CMPDD to provide technical assistance. They are the provider of technical assistance. At this point, we cannot take on, and legal, you could chime in if you want to. I don't think it's for us to take or to say, hey, we want you to do this job. I mean, so I think we need to be frugal and use them, especially, and at the end of the day, what we did was knock out the middleman. That's what we did. We knocked out the middleman. And we said we could do this 7 people instead of, and listen, I hear all this. I wish this would have happened when they were in closed doors 2 at a time 10 years ago. But this is different. This is new. All right? And so at this time, if there's nothing else to come before this body, this meeting is adjourned.